Mysterious encounter outside a cemetery during a night run. It was autumn in 2015, I was 23 years old, I am now 31. During that time I lived in Lancaster as I was studying at Lancaster University. For those who may not be familiar, Lancaster is a small and rather quaint town in the north of England. As a student, you could either live at the university campus or in private accommodation in the town. I had decided to live in a newly built, renovated apartment in a nice side of town, and yes, it was expensive. I had already been studying for 2 years and had reached my 3rd year. By this time, I had grown accustomed to the layout of the town and felt comfortable and safe living there semi-independently, with 2 other friends who were also studying at the university. Since my 1st year, I had decided to improve my fitness by taking nightly runs around either the campus or the town. As we were living in the town center by my 3rd year, I would run either with my housemate or alone. The important thing to note about Lancaster, and this will be important later, is that it has quite a large residential area that is hilly and far removed from the bustling center, which at that time was a hub for the students or the local northern folk, probably drinking in pubs or eating pies. Occasionally I would run with my housemate, however, I preferred to run alone and listen to some kind of heavy metal, a big fan of Deftones during that period. On this particular day, as I said, a chilly, autumnal evening, I had decided to run alone. It was about 8 p.m. and I had my earphones in. I had started to run up to the more isolated district that led up to a very pretty residential area and a large green called Williamson Park. It had a butterfly museum at the top of a hill. Next to the park was a very large graveyard, the kind that is miles wide and had different areas, large yew trees, crumbling graves, a crypt in the center overrun with leaves and ivy. What was especially creepy about this particular cemetery was that it had the ruin of an old mental asylum or hospital at the other side. You could actually sneak in if you walked across the width of the cemetery and crawled through a small hole in the fence that led to the asylum grounds. This was not advised, though, as guard dogs roamed the derelict building. It was not a place you wanted to be during the night. So, I had made my way past Williamson Park and up to the entrance of the graveyard. Immediately, my eye was drawn to something small standing at the imposing gates of the graveyard. They were kind of tall, black iron gates that were at the bottom of a little winding path. I felt a little apprehensive, but it wasn't unusual to see people walking their dogs etc. out of the graveyard, so I started to slow my pace to a walk in the direction of the shape. As I drew nearer, I realized that the shape was a child around 9 to 10 years old, and they were running towards me frantically. They looked panicked and scared, I think they were crying. I vividly remember that the girl was not wearing a coat, only a thin dress that would not be suitable for the harsh Lancastrian autumn. She asked me if I could help her. She was desperate and seemed to be frightened of something. She kept looking back into the graveyard, which at this point was totally pitch black beyond the gates. I mean, there was absolutely no light beyond the path. As the graveyard was quite large, it was chilling to see the depth of the blackness and the vulnerable child standing at the mouth of the gate, helpless. I don't recall what the girl said exactly, but I then offered to call the local police. I had typed 999 into my phone and had it on loudspeaker. The girl immediately changed. She was not happy about the fact I was calling the police, that was clear. She stopped crying and she seemed angry, almost demanding, and insisted that she did not need the police to help. I reassured her that it was best to inform the police, even offered to walk her to the station, which was about 20 minutes back down the hill. This is where the story gets weird and a little terrifying. The girl turned and ran back into the graveyard. She ran directly through the gates into the eerie blackness. She didn't turn back, just ran as quickly as possible until she had completely disappeared. It was then totally silent. I was spooked beyond belief, now standing in a darkened street, completely alone. I had so many questions. Who was the girl? Why was she alone? Why was she scared of the police? Why wasn't she frightened of the dark? Who might she be running to, or from? I turned and ran all the way back down the hill, not stopping until I had reached a well-lit, built-up area. Safe to say, I didn't run on my own at night again. Anyway, it's a mystery that has plagued me ever since. Little girl in the graveyard, let's definitely not meet again.